Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. While the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened, and the doors shall be shut in the streets, when the sound of the grinding is low, and he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. Also when they shall be afraid of that which is high, and fears shall be in the way, and the almond tree shall flourish, and the grasshopper shall be a burden, and desire shall fail, because man goeth to his long home, and the mourners go about the streets. Or ever the silver cord be loosed, or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be broken at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern. Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, all is vanity. Well, that's from Ecclesiastes, of course, the final chapter, the first few verses from 1 to 8. Powerful passage of scripture, and one that always puts me in mind of T.S. Eliot and other poets who clearly read the Bible and taken from it with a free hand, rarely crediting the source of their inspiration, I would say. These are dark times. I think there's no question of it. In England, we are sore pressed, but they are sore pressed in many countries as we see the removal of justice, the removal of righteousness, the removal of love even from the brethren, a darkening of the age, perhaps a preparation for greater things to come, a change that is anticipated, but it's not completely formed. There's doubt, and there's the end, and the end of an age. And it puts me in consideration of the matter of limerence, framing also, and register. Because we do create our own reality. The New Age people like to say that, but I don't know whether it's fully understood. But in a measure, the way that we view the world is the way that the world manifests then, almost as though the view precedes the manifestation. We frame a situation. We decipher the register of a phrase, of a relationship, and we can become embroiled in limerence when we fail to consider these important matters. And we act as though we are tossed on the sea rather than being intimately involved in building its flows and its billows and its waves. I often watch the Australian soap opera Neighbours. It's a horrible piece of work and full of deception and lies, very subtle. It's one of those many programs that has been used to put everybody to sleep, to take us into a strange way and to abandon the way of the Lord until we think it's the natural thing to do. And I was put in mind of that in a recent episode, and it's not just that one, there are many, when I think quite deliberately the authors create a situation in which there is a sexual tension completely unannounced and completely unaddressed between cast members of ostensibly very different ages, and in particular between men of middle age and young women. They impose the standard age-appropriate ideology in that program. But age-appropriate is just another deception, and it's one of the reasons why everything has gone so badly wrong. Because really, men of middle age should take to wives young women of childbearing age, and a difference of 20 or 30 years is of no consequence, and indeed desirable, because it places the husband very much in a controlling frame, a frame of authority which is right and proper, and it allows his wife to look up to him, also because of his age. One of the reasons, one of the consequences, I suppose, of the feminist movement and the displacement of the righteous place of the virtuous woman has been this misappropriation of ages. And of course, society has been moulded to facilitate this by placing young men and women, young boys really, and women of similar age in close proximity to one another in their universities. So it becomes natural. But really, young men in a properly devised or pursued community would be training for war, not wasting time with young virgins and getting distracted by them when they really have no insufficient substance themselves. The young virgins would be at home with the other women folk until they're chosen as a wife or taken as a wife, but not by a young man who's little more than a boy. Men develop much more slowly than women, and we tend to reach maturity at the age of around 30, whereas for women it's at least 10 years earlier. And that makes a huge difference in the way that society develops. And so I watched this soap opera, and there was this suggestion, but it wasn't explicit at all. They wouldn't dare. It's quite the opposite of what they're attempting to do. But they like to suggest these things in a covert and sexualized manner. And they thereby hide the true righteousness of such relationships. I see this with the polygyny arguments that are now becoming more and more central when we're noticing and remembering that a man isn't governed by his wife, and if he wishes to take 2 or 3 or 4 wives, and it is under his hand to do so, then this is praiseworthy for the Lord, because the object is to raise up seed for the Lord. And so there's no point really in forging a relationship with a woman who's past childbearing, and any man that is still able to produce seed ideally would take to wife a woman who is of childbearing age, producing that disparity of ages that in modern society it would be greatly frowned upon. And that again, that's deliberate. It's framed as abusive, but it's actually holy. That's how we need to form our families, our righteous families. It would be a wonderful thing to see it return. I killed 3 rats about a week or 10 days ago, and the matter lay hard with me after a while, because after trapping the rats on 3 consecutive days, I began to think, and I noticed there were no more rats coming. I realized I'd probably killed a male, a female, and a juvenile. So perhaps the nest consisted of those 3 individuals. And I regretted trapping and killing them, although I still think it was probably necessary, because I didn't want to have them on the property. But, that's a prejudice of mine. And if you frame that in a different way, then I could have approached it in a kind of live and let live manner. I didn't know at the time how many rats there would be. I had fears of hordes of the things. And they're not pleasant animals to have around because they're potentially dangerous. They carry disease. They have long, sharp teeth. They're not animals that I care to live among. But it depends how you see a particular relationship. And so the relationship, or the relationships, or the lack thereof, in my life and in our lives can be changed and forged by the way that we perceive them and the way that we relinquish our agency sometimes in relation to the relationships of the people around us due to prejudice and lack of discernment. I had quite a powerful dream in the small hours of the night that's just passed. And in the dream, there was a man, and he was suggesting, urging me that we could go together and create a new world. I'd understood it. There was some sequence of activities, almost mystical, that we could do, and we would do them, and that would create a new world. And I felt very uneasy. It seemed to me that this was witchcraft. I was drawn into it, but I was uncomfortable. And he corrected me and said, no, we're not creating a new world. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to create a new time. We're going to create sort of time out of joint. The world is the same, but the times have changed. When we cross this barrier, and you can do that, perhaps, when you change your perception of the people around you and cast them in different roles. And so you change your behavior in relation to them, and you start applying a measure of agency and actually building and creating a new world out of the ashes of the desperate world that we seem to have forged. Our faith has agency. It's a spiritual power. And I'm not speaking of wishing for impossible things, but simply reframing, reinterpreting, changing the register, avoiding this impotent limerence that the world recommends and foists upon us, rejecting it, and instead acting as spirits and prophets God bless this day.